where I'm inspiring youth and passing on the knowledge that I've amassed over the years as an artist. So happy to be here.
Thank you. Britt?
Hi, everyone. I'm Britt Witt. I'm born and raised in LA, been in the music industry my whole life. I'm most recently known for running the music venue, The Hi-Hat in Highland Park here in LA, but I'm also a music journalist, a event and festival producer, and I, of course, manage a band, a rock band here in LA called Jagged Baptist Club.
Cool. Thank you. Jai?
Hey guys, I'm Jai Dior. I am based in New York City. Extensively, I've had a little stint, or rather a longer stint at Combs Enterprises, marketing for Bad Boy Records, and then experiential and marketing for Ciroc and De Leon Tequila. And kind of after a decade of that, ventured off and started to do some creative work with a few R&B artists that you all know, and presently am day-to-day for Mariah Carey.
Sierra, last but not least.
Okay, Sierra Livre. I work at Columbia Records in marketing, and I've been in LA for the past 6 years, originally from Portland, Oregon. And the artists that I work across are in the urban space. Polo G, who just dropped a new album, Chloe and Halle, 24K Golden, Tyga, Fabio Foreign, and Javaya. So I'm in the space of hip hop and R&B, and it's amazing.
Yeah. And we also have another panelist, Courtney Stewart, joining us, who is an artist manager. And when he pops on the call, we'll give him the opportunity to introduce himself. But I want to go ahead and start this conversation. So before we get into the details of sort of what an artist team is and how it works, all of you all really play a huge component of that team. And so Jai, starting with you as an artist manager and someone who works in marketing as well, can you tell our audience like what that is and what a day looks like for you?
Got it. So for me on my end, on the management side and day-to-day is literally making sure everything is set in stone, kind of setting the trend on expectations, but then also making sure everyone is falling in line, all holes are filled. And if there are any holes, figuring out how, when they're going to be solved. Cool.
So, and Sierra, sort of same question for you, someone who's in the marketing space and on an artist side, what is your role and how does that fit into the grand scheme of an artist team?
Yeah, my role is a very intricate role because I'm pretty much in the center of an entire team. Every time that we sign an artist, we're introduced to them, we talk about them, we figure out what their story is, we figure out what their strengths are, and we use those things to essentially promote the artist and the music. Figuring out what is beyond the music is super important as well, just because there are periods of time where an artist might not be recording, and you still have to figure out ways to connect with your fans. But on the label side, just making sure that we are covering our bases from sales and pitching with DSPs to our radio plan. What's our digital online plan and strategy there? What are we doing creatively in terms of artist development? How are they learning how to move better on stage? How are they able to be better with their vocals? You know, it's every single point across the board and elevating the artist.
Yeah, and Britt, as a talent buyer, sort of how do you fit into all of this?
I end up being that gateway for artists once they're ready to be performing live to actually be directly in touch with their audience and their fans, and giving them the opportunity to kind of stretch their legs and do what I think all the artists love to do, is just play. giving them that platform to actually do that.
Cool, thank you. Courtney, welcome. It's nice to have you.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Do you want to briefly introduce yourself for our audience?
Hi, everybody. I'm Courtney Stewart. super excited to be here on this panel today. My background is in management. I founded a company called Right Hand Management and Right Hand Music Group, and we look after Khalid, Sinead Hartnett, Wynn, and a plethora of other artists and producers. And I'm also co-founder in a record label called Keep Cool. We have a partnership through RCA Records. Me and my partner Tunji Balagan, who is a phenomenal A&R and music guy. And on Keep Cool, we have Normani and Lucky Day. We just signed an incredible artist named Umi, and some more talented artists as well.
Cool, thanks, Courtney. So we're just in our conversation now. We have just been talking about sort of all of our roles and how they play into the industry and they play into the artist team. And Polly, I want to start with you because as an artist, I'm so curious. As you built your team, who was the first person that you said, I need this person to be able to begin and launch my career?
For me, it was finding management. That was critical to the sense of having a face. And sometimes when you're representing yourself, you're not taken as seriously for whatever reason. Having a manager, having that buffer, having someone to speak on your behalf sort of elevates you to another level. So that was the sort of the strategy that I took when I was first starting out, and also utilizing the relationships of that manager. You know, it's not just you anymore. You have more legs, you know, when you have representation. So management was key.
Yeah, and then Courtney, to sort of piggyback off of Polly, she says, right, I'm ready for a manager and I'm ready to get my music out there. I'm ready to elevate my career. You as an artist manager, what are you looking for to sort of verify that?
For me, I am a person, I go into it where I'm here to help take that vision that an artist has and, you know, turn it into reality. So I'm not the kind of person that likes to tell the artist what to do, because I feel like you should have creative control of your vision and your message that you want to put out to the world. But I will help to insinuate that. I will use my expertise to, you know, strategies of how we can build your brand, how can we get your music out there, and just being a pure music person too, just giving my opinion. But I definitely leave those things to the artist, and I feel like it needs to be a partnership. Every artist that I've managed, there's been a courting process that has been pretty long, because I treat my roster like family, and we, you know, it's not just business. We're supportive of one another. I mean, especially at a time like this, we're in quarantine. Like, you need family, you need friends, you need a support system. And I mean, I've talked to my artists literally like every day, just about life, because it's hard for artists to find inspiration when you're stuck in a house and when the world is, you know, we're going through what we're going through right now. So that's kind of my approach. Each manager is different, but you know, I'm just like pro creatives and pro supporting their vision and just diving in and just really just kind of having like a cool organic partnership and relationship, and just figure out how to streamline things and just make it happen.
Yeah, I like that you spoke a little bit about creative control, because for Jai and Sierra, I'm so curious that you all work with artists, but you belong to larger entities. So what does creative control look like for you? And then how do you relate that to the artists that you work with? And Jai, we can start with you.
Okay, cool. I guess with me, it's a little bit different. I have kind of played devil's advocate with myself, just because I have label experience, but then also management experience. So on the label side, I've had it both, where you kind of come in and it's putty. We can play with it. You know, we get the story, we receive it. But in terms of like the range that the artist is willing to go, sometimes this is what it is. Sometimes it's very direct, very specific, but then other times it's like, hey, you want me to dance? Maybe I can pull out a 16 count, but I can pull out 8 count, or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like, I'm exaggerating, obviously, but just pulling those kind of things. But then there's been some artists where, I step in and like, hey, you're going to start working with this artist. Cool. I start receiving emails and it's legit telling me what's happening. And then, like no, hands off. Then on the management side, it's more so fighting and making sure exactly what they want to do is exactly kind of like piggyback on for Courtney is like coming to life, coming into fruition. If essentially you're not able to execute what they foresee and make sure that it gets done in any way, shape, or form, whatever route it is. If it's, talking to the marketing team at the label, if it starts with you guys on your end and fighting with the internal team to make sure that the label sees what the vision is, or, pushing and showcasing whatever it is on, the artist's personal end so that the label falls in line, sometimes that's what it is.
Yeah. Sarah, what do you have to add to that? What does creative control look like in your role?
Yeah, I mean, it's just piggybacking off of what you had just said right now. I have some artists who are very particular in their vision and they want to be involved every single step of the way. And it's amazing because it's like they have that vision and now we have to make sure that we execute that. But then on the other hand, there are artists who haven't seen a vision for themselves quite yet. Like they know what's working now, but they don't foresee what those next couple steps are, or they haven't had the resources, or they are so used to, for example, with visuals, doing things that are just run and gun in the moment. It's like, give us some time, let us set this up the right way that allows you to have a bigger vision. Make the idea, that one small idea that you have, but let's magnify it and add some other creatives to help build that out. And also it's just having communication and having trust with the artist and with the manager. A lot of times too, it's great to lean on the connections that they have because, that's where you find those hidden gems of people who can actually produce something that looks different that hasn't been done before. So it really just depends on your trust level and relationship with the artist and manager, and then seeing what exactly the artist envisions for themselves. And if they don't have a particular vision per se, it's giving them some examples, leading them one direction or the other, and seeing what they like and what they don't like. It can sometimes be a trial and error, but we eventually get somewhere on the right path.
Yeah. And Britt, for you, right? So the artists have their team, they've been performing, they've worked with Tier, they've got their marketing together, they've got their management, and now you're out there sourcing and looking for good talent. So one, where are you looking for this talent at? And sort of how are you being able to say they're at a place where they're ready to perform?
I mean, I look everywhere. The coolest part about my job as a talent buyer or as an event and festival producer is I just get to find music all the time. And it can be anywhere from just like falling down a rabbit hole on SoundCloud or Spotify to being really well integrated into the community and the industry and knowing who to talk to, knowing where to look, knowing what management rosters, knowing what agent rosters to look at. But a lot of the time it's also coming to me and the artist team basically selling their artists to me. And then it's a matter of just determining the 8,000 million factors that go into, I think every decision that a musician does has all these different unexpected details that go into informing the decision. But very specifically when you're performing live, just the baseline, you have to have an audience. You have to at least look like you're going to have an audience or try to have an audience. And then it's also just like, you can hear if someone's genuine and has passion and is willing to do what it takes to get on that stage, be comfortable on that stage, and get people to come see them.
Right. And what's also very intriguing, sort of, again, all of you all play such crucial parts in an artist team. And Palia, you and I were talking about this last week in our mini conversations that we have, but putting together a team of individually, right, everyone is great, but what does that look like when everyone gets together, and how do you manage all those different personalities and work ethics?
Yeah, that can be challenging. I think it is a lot about finding synergy within people and finding commonalities. because it does become a lot of personality management, at least in my experience. You know, you can have very strong individual team players, but if, you know, this personality is a little bit stronger and they're a little bit more antagonistic than this person, this one, you know, you tend to end up having a frictional dynamic within your team. So it really is about like finding like-minded people that speak the same language, right? That's very important. How people communicate is very key, because like I said, it does become, as the artist, you are the nucleus, you are the one leading the charge. And so you have to, you're a leader, whether you want to be or not, whether you want, you know, that role or not. So, yeah, it's just about having a vision and making sure that vision is communicated and that people are communicating it in a similar manner, if that makes sense.
How long would you say that it took for you to put together your solid team?
I've had several teams.
Talk about it.
Well, you know, I mean, you know, I've been blessed to be in the game for a while. Like I found longevity. I found my own version of success, which is different for every person. For me, it was always being able to survive and create and, you know, have access to this space of music. That's my love. Writing music is my first love. So being able to have access to creating music has always been my version of success. So that it's gonna, you know, you're gonna outgrow. It's like life. It's like relationships. Sometimes you outgrow this person. Sometimes they outgrow you, and you know, it's not a linear journey at all. So again, I've been in the space for a while, so that's what speaks to why I've had multiple teams. I've been signed to multiple labels. I stopped doing the artist thing for a second and focused only on songwriting. So I was over here as a songwriter being managed. So, you know, because of the different spaces that my career took me, it called for different types of team players, if that makes sense.
It does. Makes a lot of sense. I like that. I like the phrase of like, the artist is really the nucleus of it all. And when talking about an artist team, there is this conversation of like, this is what I can provide you and what can you provide me. And I think Jai and Courtney specifically, I want to hear from you all about what are the skill sets that you possess that make you good at your role, that you're telling artists, like, this is what I have and this is what you need. And we'll start with Jai.
For me, on my end, traditionally, the first few artists that I started to work with, like outside of label, and when I just started to just kind of pick it up because of the passion and the habit, I always tried to stay in the, oh no, I'm just gonna creative and marketing. I always tried to like fall back and like not take that title. And what I eventually found was I kept being used as a buffer, and a buffer for label, for this person. You know, there's always like the good cop, bad cop situation, but I would be used 360 in every situation, and I can never figure out why. And then people started to, you know, kind of confide in me and say, you say what needs to be said, but you get along with everyone. And I think it's just this thing about like always like kind of just keeping it 100 with people, but like not necessarily letting them know that you keep it 100 with everyone, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So it's kind of like a little bit of a mind game, but it works, and it kind of like falls with everyone kind of like confiding in you and making sure like let's like all be aligned, and let's like keep this artist satisfied and keep it going.
Courtney, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think that was a really great answer, and I agree with everything that he said. You know, I mean, management is kind of like the core definition of that word. You know, it's about managing personalities. It's about managing every aspect of their life. You know, from a creative standpoint, but also from a business standpoint. And you know, you want creatives to focus on being creatives and not having to worry about a lot of the stresses that us as managers, you know, do on a day-to-day basis. A lot of times artists don't even know what managers do. You know, they're like, what do you do all day? You know, it's like, if you only knew. But, you know, I definitely like, I keep those two worlds separate so that they can focus on, you know, doing what they do from a creative standpoint. And then also just being the voice from the artist. I love his answer because, he was pretty much saying there's like, a lot, you are a buffer and you are constantly fighting battles for them and playing the good cop, bad cop role, because the artist is supposed to remain the person, that is good and, that's humble and, doing what they do. And, you need that person to interject to be the voice for their client, to have those tough conversations and to address issues head on. So once again, it's that slippery slope between being creative and staying in that role and also handling the business, because this is a business at the end of the day. So
yeah, I'm gonna pivot, but still stay in the same conversation. A lot of what we're getting in chat and questions are about work-life balance, and something that we always talk about is maintaining your health and wellness. And Sierra, I'm gonna start with you. You're managing several artists, you're managing several different personalities and several visions. How do you sort of balance yourself while also balancing them?
I mean, I will be honest and say it's difficult, because like we are in a position where we are making dreams come true, and these are people's lives. And so they're living this, and it's a 24-hour game. And so for myself, I'm on 24 hours for them as well. But you have to put those boundaries together. You have to put that out there just to like stay sane and to make sure that you're your best self for them as well. So it's always a work in progress. I don't think I have the actual answer to say this is exactly how you do it, but the best way is to make sure that you maintain yourself and your health, and being the best that you can be in what you're doing. And that's also building relationships with other people and bringing those things to the table to help the artists make sure that they are, living up to their full potential as well.
Yeah. Does anyone else want to add on to that question?
I think communication is really, really key. I mean, like she was just saying, from the start, you have to set those boundaries. You have to make sure that yes, you are going to be available 24/7 and you're here for them and you're ready and willing, but also remember that I'm human too. And I have personal stuff that I have to do, and you just have to, as the artist and as the rest of the team too, is recognize that there are these other aspects that do have to be personal, and remembering that we all have, like, if I'm not able to sleep, then I'm not going to, like Sierra said, I'm not going to be able to show up for you. And I think, like, if you don't set those boundaries really, really early on in the relationship, I mean, boundaries, even when you do that, start to blur. But if you don't do that from the start, then you don't have anywhere to go back to when those lines start to blur again, and remind people of, like, all right, we need a little bit of space here. So I think communication and just remembering that each one of us is still human despite making dreams come true is just absolutely imperative to the work-life balance.
Yeah.
And balance also, sorry to cut you off, super, especially visuals. I go run no matter what I'm doing, and that's like a stress reliever to me. And then I have like a whole group of like colleagues that are in the industry, and we motivate each other to work out, because you have to, it's a high stress and a high demand industry that we're in, and people are always pulling us in all these different directions. So if you don't have self-care and or really aren't like prioritizing your mental health and your physical health, that's putting yourself at risk. And I know personally, like, I'm learning even more balance. I actually have to run out in 2 seconds because I have a newborn. It's like 9 months old, and I just heard him. He just woke up, so I think I have to go get him. So like, I'm learning even how to balance, balance, having a kid, and which is my whole life. But I still also, I look at all of my clients and colleagues that I work with. They're like family, like I said earlier. So it's really key. Yeah.
Holly, do you want to, I feel like that is a similar life that you're living. And so do you want to, as an artist, how does that look for you?
I mean, yeah, I have a 1-year-old, and it's, just to piggyback what he said, it is about finding balance. That's the part of, especially speaking from the perspective as a woman, at least in my experience in the industry, there was always that stigma of having a child and what that would mean for your career. And, we've seen it with, even Lauryn Hill talking about it back in the day, and even Cardi B speaking on it. And you almost are, it's like this messaging that like having a kid means it's over for you, no one's going to find you appealing anymore. And I think that, that couldn't be farther from the truth. But because it's about pursuing your career goals, but also pursuing your personal goals, and that's going to make for a more well-rounded artist, number one. And just like I never wanted to feel like I missed out on the real life stuff, and so it's definitely, as a woman having the child that year, is you sort of have to pivot your career goals for a minute and put all your focus on that kid. But it's very rewarding, and I don't regret it at all. But again, it's about that balance. It's about making it happen and not making excuses, because it's all possible. You gotta just make time for it.
Yeah, I think something will also, oh baby. So, I think something also everyone's talking about in our chat too is that we know that there's so many pathways to get into the music industry, and none of it is linear, as we've been saying. And so Sierra, actually, we've got Cass who's asking Q&A about, and I know a little bit of this as well. It's like you have an MS in event planning, right? And you went you bachelor's and you got a master's, and now you're in this marketing role at Columbia Records. Is that the suggested pathway that you would offer to other people, or have you seen people go in and out in other ways?
Yeah, I would say this. When I had first started, I approached what I was doing in pursuing the education and career as like, this is my plan A, because it's a safe plan. And I know how to go from step 1 to 2 to 3 and to get to in the sports world, right? So Oregon State, I graduated with my bachelor's in new media communications. And then I went to Syracuse University and got my master's in sport venue and event management. And sports has always been part of my family heritage. It's been something that I was an athlete, but I also loved music. And so although I was working in college athletics and building stages and doing events, I was in the sports arena in this area, but then music was still to my core. And I would do concerts and festivals and do everything that I could on the side. But coming from Portland, Oregon, it was like the sports world seemed more attainable than the music world. Because it wasn't a major city like LA or New York or Atlanta. And so like my advice, really, like when I got to a point of being at Syracuse, I still had that dream inside of me. I was still like, okay, my plan A is maybe I'll work at a convention center, I'll work at the Staples Center or Madison Square Garden, where I'm under one roof that has sports and music, and events seemed perfect. But I also still had this dream deep down inside of me where I was like, well, I want to do something where I'm in music. I'm working for the Recording Academy, for the Grammys, like that. I wanted to produce the award show in a sense, but I was like, that felt so far out that I was like, I don't know what the steps are to get there, right? But I would say this, like, even still, I was still manifesting what I wanted. In class, I was like, okay, guys, like, yeah, I'm in this sports program, but I will say that I want to one day produce the Grammy Awards. My dream has changed since then. However, I ended up getting an internship with the Recording Academy, moving from Syracuse to LA and starting from there, then working within the organization. And I will just say this, like, go after what is true to you. Even if you can't foresee that step 1, 2, 3, 4, always still try to figure it out and figure out the steps. But I will say, you know, go for your passion. Because had I had stayed on the other route, I wouldn't be as fulfilled as I am today.
That's so beautifully put. I love it. John, you again, you got your first job related to the music industry while you were before you graduated. So sort of what do you recommend in terms of a suggested pathway?
I think definitely passion is key. That's literally like Sarah like hit that on the head with experience. Obviously, for me, just growing up, I knew like music was the thing. Just from family, like I was looking at Billboard charts when I was 10 years old. My parents did not teach me how to do that, so you know it was kind of like deep for me then. When I was going to college, I wanted to do a like music engineering, or I wanted to do like something like very, very music specific. One of my parents, I won't say which one, because I don't know if they're creeping in here, but they know who they are, looked at me crazy and was just like, you need to do, you know, business or IT, whatever. So I thought I was going to school for IT. Literally all of a month before I went there, I was like, yeah, I don't want to do this. I can, you know, there's a difference between being able to do something and like having like the desire to wake up, do that every single day.
Right.
And so I switched my major, and but through like the organic conversation that I had with my school, which actually was William Patterson State School in New Jersey, nothing major. Now they're actually one of the top schools for music business per Billboard, actually a few weeks ago. But I was able to do like a double major, so I did business marketing and music management. And I didn't necessarily know what would come of it. My conversation with them, they're like, "Oh, so you need to have like a performance piece," and I'm like, "What?" You know, like I did play the piano a little bit, like random little things, but I was just like, "This is not going to be the thing." I might have done a few references for, you know, my uncle or something, but I'm like, this is not what this is about to be. So I had a conversation with them. They let me like waive that, and then I got into the program. And yeah, so I ended up at Bad Boy while I was in college. I had been trying to intern there since I was 15 or 16.
Oh, wow.
Off of a crazy story from just young people that I knew that used to intern there that I would hear about. Never really known was a real thing, but I'm just like, oh, I'm from Jersey. I'm going to intern at Bad Boy when I'm 16. They're like, buddy, you got to be 18. I mean, like, you got to be in college. And I'm in college. You need to get college credits. So, but I kept that like conversation going. And then like later on, one of those people, I actually ended up meeting, who was like legit an intern there when they were 16. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad this story was not fake. Like it was a real, back in the 90s, obviously. So, you know, just kind of like work my way through there. But even being on the label side, you know, I loved it there. But then I ended up, you know, going to the Ciroc side. So I'm on the agency side now where I'm doing marketing. And then all of a sudden I started to do experiential, which like is a side thing for me now, which never even like a thing that in my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to do events and I'm going to curate this, do that. That was never a thing in my mind, but I'm great at it. And I do love it as long as it evolves.
Yeah, thank you. And Britt, did you have the same experience at Santa Cruz where you said like, I knew that I was going to be a talent buyer, or how did your journey sort of come to fruition?
Not at all. I definitely never thought about being a talent buyer. I never really I knew I was going to shows, but I wasn't really thinking about it. I was producing shows and talent buying in LA when I was 13, but all I knew was that I wanted to be in music. When I was 7, I wanted to have my own record label, and I was making mixtapes with my logo on it and all this stuff. And then when I was 11, I wanted to be a music journalist and have my own magazine. So I started making magazines and blogging before pitch was really a thing. And then when it came down to all right, I have to think about a career, I went to college and studied economics because I knew that music, you don't really need a degree to be in music, but it's helpful. And so I figured I'm not going to get a music degree. I'm just going to get something practical in case the music industry explodes and I have to do something else. But to stay passionate about music and keep myself getting through economics, because yikes, I started doing radio. And in doing radio, I started producing events with radio. I was interning for Indie 103.1 in LA while I was simultaneously at school in Santa Cruz. And I just kind of became hands-on on everything. I was working with Mr. Shovel, who was the music director at the time. I was working with TK, who was the afternoon DJ. I would sit in and do his calls and help him on the air. And then we started producing events. I was a marketing intern. So that's where I really started finding like, okay, I'm really, really good at this. And I really like this aspect. And as much as I would love still to be like a DJ radio personality, because I still love discovering music and sharing it, events and being a talent buyer kind of just fell into my lap. I just kept walking through it. Like Indie 103.1's door closed the year that I was graduating college, because that was when the entire world financially shut down. So Indie 103.1 disappeared, that door closed. I just kept going through any open door that seemed, as long as it was in music and I was curious about it, I would just walk through that door and I would learn as much as I could. And every time I would hone in closer and closer on what I was really finding, like what about this job makes me feel passionate, makes me feel like I'm thriving. And I would just keep walking through. And honestly, I'm still doing that. I'm a talent buyer and I'm really good at it. And I absolutely love producing festivals and events, but I also really love managing Jagged Baptist Club, and I still love radio, and I still like, so I'm just watching whenever a door is going to open, just keeping an open mind and trusting myself that everything is going to be okay.
Yeah, sort of the common theme in all of this is really persistency and confidence and self-awareness. And to Sierra's point that she's making earlier, like try everything and continue to ask questions. There's so many different directions that I want to take this conversation now that you all have shared all of this. Jai, the chat is loving you. They want you to start a podcast. So just put that on the radar if you're looking for another source of income.
Please don't let any of my group chats hear about me having a podcast. Really never leave this apartment and be quarantined for life.
Yes.
But, and sorry, I just had to say, Britt, you really took it back with the
yeah.
I made all the bank in middle school.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
That was
That's awesome.
So I want to pivot. Courtney, we actually have a question for your son. No, I'm just kidding. No, I want to pivot and talk about sort of this new climate that we're in and how your roles have adjusted. And Polly, I want to start with you. But as an artist, how have you sort of shifted, or have you shifted your vision in this new era?
Definitely. You know, the obvious is not, you know, being able to perform out or, you know, sort of seek those opportunities. But, you know, the silver lining is that an entire new avenue has been, you know, laid before us with live streaming and performing from home. But I you know, I feel like this has actually been good for artists. I mean, we've seen the numbers with, you know, especially independent artists, because people do have the time. And so, yeah, it's kind of just, you know, been repivoted to just figuring out how to take advantage of the fact that people are on their phones a lot more, are, you know, engaged right now. So I'm in general the type of person that looks at the brighter side, tries to find the silver lining. And, you know, I'm realizing that there are many, and, you know, that's sort of how I've approached it and how I pivoted. Just like, you can easily be like, oh my God, this is terrible. Or you can be like, all right, how can we make some lemonade out of this? Like, and so we've seen a lot of artists do it. Erykah Badu is a great example with her quarantine series. Like, there's possibility. I think it's just about a mindset and about a solution, having a solution-based mindset at all times. And that's sort of how I'm releasing a song next month, and I feel like I have everyone's attention more than I maybe would have before. So that's sort of been my approach.
Yes, come on, shout out plug.
Coming June 19th, y'all.
Sierra, is this a space where everyone is online, everyone is digital? Is this a marketer's dream, or are you finding complications in the COVID-19 era too?
I mean, it's It's interesting because, you know, digital has grown so much and been kind of like that go-to forefront to get music heard and get artists discovered. But from my like personal observations, as much as it's important, it's the other elements that we are missing in this moment right now, whether it is radio, it is performing, it is touring, it's having those in-person experiences. Like we are still missing a lot of ways to touch fans and to connect with them. So it has forced us to be more creative in figuring out how to make sure that we're still connecting with fans, and also having other ways of visibility that's not just online, because despite everyone being online, that means it's more cluttered. And at the same time, it does kind of like, I don't want to say even the playing field for artists, but there are more eyeballs online, whether it's on YouTube, it's on Instagram, it's on TikTok, it's on all these different platforms, and people want to discover more because they're essentially, they might get bored, or they want to just find something that's new and that's stimulating. And so we're creative, but we're also missing a lot of those elements. And I think we're really seeing how much that has impacted the connection. Not only just like the financial hit that our artists are taking, but definitely just that experience that music brings.
Yeah, I like that, and you mentioned it, talking about growing a new fan base and growing a new audience, right? Artists have their dedicated fans, but when they're doing concerts or they're doing interviews or doing all that stuff that's happening live, they're bringing in new audiences. And Courtney, as a manager and managing Khalid, how are you sort of pushing your audience to build new fan bases?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I'll answer that question, but I think this is the beauty of our business, because music, it's a universal language. Music is in everything. Every, movie that you watch is music. It's a part of what brings the world together and what inspires and influences people all around the world. So it's a very powerful tool. But our business will continue to change at all times. And I think that's like kind of the fun part and the challenging part about our business, is because, in 5 more years, things are going to change even more. When I first started off, it was all about the physical CD. It was all about radio airplay, doing in-stores, guerrilla marketing. But now, fast forward, we're in the digital era. So in order for me, I started professionally in 2005. In order for me to sustain from 2005 until 2020, I had to be able to get through the peaks and the valleys of where the business is going. And of course, streaming music and the digital age and the internet it's like, that's our world. But there's some tech kids that's working on something that's gonna change the game yet again. So to answer your question, I've told all my artists to take this time to sit back and reflect. I don't think it's any rush to be like, okay, let me put out some music because everybody is listening, but really find some true inspiration. And I think this is the time where people will actually want to hear something real, where people want to hear a message, because this is the first time in my lifetime that I've seen the whole world affected by the same thing. Mm-hmm. Typically, if you're in a different tax bracket, you can escape something and say, oh, me and my family are going to the islands and we're going to escape that, for a month. Or, something is impacting in the United States, but it's not happening in Africa, Yeah. But the COVID-19 has affected the world. So every listener, everybody in the world is being affected. So it's had global impact. And I feel like, the messaging in the music, you can touch people in a deeper way and in just a more special way now, because everybody is experiencing the same thing.
Yeah, and it's a common theme that we're seeing, that some artists are using this time to reflect and sort of sit back, and there's also artists who are just pushing out music and performing live. So I think it's a combination of who they are and what their fan base is wanting. Sierra, I want to ask you this because you and I were texting about this last week about trends in the music industry and trends that we hope stay in COVID and trends that we hope sort of continue outside of it. Are there any that you are looking at now where you say, like, I'm definitely going to continue this even after the world opens back up?
I feel like, just in terms of, I think right now artists are taking more risks. And that's what I'm hoping will kind of get us into this pattern of taking more risks with technology. I have artists where they're like downloading Zoom for the first time or Skype, and like now they're forced to kind of expand their skills or using Twitch. It's like they're being exposed and having to adjust, like how Courtney was saying. And I hope that is something that continues, just like having that openness to finding something new in a creative way. But also too, I would say shooting these music videos right now are difficult. And so artists are like forced to shoot their own videos in the home, or we're forced to go ahead and do more lyric videos and animated videos and creating different worlds and like really creating that hub for fans to go to in place of other outlets of having those opportunities to see them in person. So I think that, in terms of those trends, I want to keep seeing that animation aspect like grow because it's already there. It's just now more people are being exposed to it. And then just utilizing the other platforms like a Twitch and into gaming and like having artists just be more open to try new things that they traditionally wouldn't.
You and I are talking about Twitch and how it's a whole new thing to get under. Britt, you're, as a talent buyer, right? Someone who looks for talent and put them in a live performance space, it's changed drastically as we moved into this COVID-19 space. And so what does your world actually look like now, and how do you think it's going to look after this is all over?
I dread this question so much. I feel like out of everything that's part of the music industry, it is absolutely just the most volatile. We actually have no clue where it's going to go. There's like ideas of keeping it small, or everybody's working on it. Everyone's trying to figure it out. It seems like the most unexpected. We just don't know what's going to happen. And what I think is a bummer the most about that is that when you do talk to artists, everyone just misses that community that was created by performing live. And I think that's going, like, the longer we're not able to give that platform to an artist, the harder it's going to be to stay inspired. So it's going to be really important that the teams get together and make sure that we're all supporting each other really well. But in terms of like what's going on, you've got live streams, and that's going to be the only way you can really have a giant audience. And then figuring out how to make money off of live streams feels really weird, but it's going to be necessary. It's an evolution that, because we just don't know when we can open a door again, it's really hard to make that call.
I feel like, yes, I think as we try to predict trends in the music industry, what's going to stay, what's going to go, something that I've learned that is true is that there's a want for it all, right? There's a want for music. There's a want to be connected to an artist. And so in the way that you sort of execute that is up to you. But I think that the want and the need is definitely there. It's sad because we have to wrap up. And this conversation has been so good, and I want to continue it. But I want to wrap up just with one piece of advice you'd give your younger self. And Polly, I'm going to start with you because I know it's going to be brilliant.
I think I would tell my younger self to just manifestation is key. I think that, speaking things into existence is very powerful, and writing things down is very powerful, and being very deliberate about what you want, and not being afraid to want and and ask. I think what held me back from a lot, or just, my perception of my journey, I think what I know now, had I known then, as far as just really being deliberate and ask, and actually knowing that you can have it, and you deserve to have it just by existing. You don't need anybody to validate it. You don't need anybody to, to warrant you worthy. So I think for all the young artists listening right now, it's just like, write it down and actually believe that you can have it and you should have it. That's what I would say.
Right.
I'll go next, because mine is, pretty much an extension of Polly's, and it's faith. It's manifestation, and it's faith. I'm a very spiritual person, and I believe that you have to have faith. You have to have faith within yourself. You have to have faith in your vision, and everybody isn't gonna understand, what your vision is. Everybody's not gonna get what you're trying to do. Since I was a kid, I've been talking about having my own record label and being in the position that I'm in now. And you know how many people shut that down, but you have to have perseverance. And I essentially look at myself as a door-to-door salesman. Like, what you put in is what you're going to get out. So you have to just knock on doors and break barriers, and have integrity and stand for something, because it's more than just being successful. It's more than just having a hit record. You're representing so much more. And so I think by having perseverance, faith, just throwing like some synonyms that are kind of like all like shape who's shaped for me to get to where I am today has been, faith, perseverance, and definitely manifestation. I remember when Khalid, when we first did his deal, I took a Billboard magazine and cut a picture out, and I put his picture on the cover of that Billboard magazine, and I used to carry it everywhere. And he had like location was bubbling, but he wasn't at the level where he is now. And I would tell people, look, he's going to be on the cover. And a year later, he was actually on the same cover that I had. It was the Grammy edition of the Billboard magazine. I think it was like Chance the Rapper and some people the year before. And then he was on there with SZA and Julia Michaels and a couple other people. But that's just an example of, like Polly said, writing everything down and just truly manifesting anything you want. Because I mean, it's no boundaries to what you can do and what you can achieve. You just have to have the faith and be able to put in the work to match that faith.
Powerful words. Sierra, what you got for us?
Oh man.
I know.
Like, they just took the words right out of my mouth. I would say, just like personally to my younger self, believe in yourself. Don't be afraid to stand out. Figure out what your voice is and own it. There's going to be so many different pressures that you go through, whether it is that you're an artist or you're working independently or you are trying to become an executive in a company. Always being your own self cheerleader. That goes under the same lines of having faith and manifesting, what it is that you envision for yourself. But I think that self first, and not in a selfish way, but it's more like, what is it that drives me? What is my passion? And not conforming in a way that puts you last on your list of what you dream of. So.
Yes, thank you. Britt, what you got?
Definitely going with that. Be yourself. Absolutely. Like, be genuine. Don't be deterred by feeling like you're maybe the black sheep or the wallflower, or you don't know what direction you want to go in. Just really trust your gut. Be yourself, and don't be afraid to do that. Your uniqueness is what makes you stand out and what makes you get to wherever you want to go, even if you don't know what that is. Your individuality is going to be way more valuable in the end than trying to conform with others, and trusting that your individuality is going to help you, is going to propel, and it's going to help with the persistence and the manifestation. But definitely persistence is also key.
Yes. Jai, sir, you have the pleasure of taking us home.
Whew. Okay, so I guess my thing is just try, like literally trust and try without, even putting something out into the atmosphere. Of course, writing it down, manifesting, all of that is great, but like, you know, without actually trying to execute something, it's just like there's no way of having someone, accept it, deny it, embrace it, love it, hate it. Without all of those things, like you'll never know, like legit, unless you try. I used to constantly, just worry about, oh, what are they gonna think? What are they gonna do? It's like, well, if you don't even try to put it out there, talk about it, whatever it may be, it's potentially may legit never be a thing. I used to worry about, oh, I'm more of a worker than a networker. Like, if I'm doing an event or I'm an artist, I'm making sure they're good, or I'm making sure the event is fine, whatever it may be. I'm not like, hey, my name's Jai, I do this. Nice to meet you. I'm making sure that is said. That's all set in stone. If those other things happen, cool, great, fine. I'm worried about the big goal. That person, that event, that production, whatever it may be, and just from my time now, I used to always worry about that, think about that, like, oh my gosh, I didn't get their card, I didn't exchange contacts, I didn't this, whatever. All of those things like eventually became full circle, and it's just, I remember you because you were the one running around and you ran to the other side of the stage to make sure that mic was working, or whatever the case, whatever the situation is. And so just, try, put it out there.
I feel like I just want to sit in all. I think you all just shared so many great nuggets, and I feel like we started talking about the artist team and what that looked like, and then your personal careers, and then you took us to church for a bit, and it's just been so much good stuff on this conversation. And I want to applaud all of you all for being a part of it and giving back to Music Forward in this way. I want to thank our audience who have been really just engaged this whole time. The chat was lit. This is the first time I've ever seen it. I've got some fans on here asking for more and asking for part twos. And this is truly what Music Forward is about. It's about educating and empowering the next generation of future leaders. So with that said, thank you all so much for joining us. We'll be back here next week, the same time, talking about monetization in music. We dropped everyone's social in the chat, and I look forward to connecting with you all when the world opens up again. Because I feel like we're all unstoppable together. So I don't know if we want to start a business or what that looks like. We can talk offline. But I'm excited to know all of you all. And thank you so much for sharing your insight.